Teho pressed his face against the cold glass of his ship's window. Below him, the human colony of New Sol spread out like a ghost town. Empty buildings stood in perfect rows, their windows dark and lifeless. Not a single light flickered in the streets that once buzzed with human activity. "Sir, we're getting the same readings from all the human worlds," said Yuna from her station behind him. Her blue skin was pale with worry, and her tentacles moved nervously as she spoke. "They're all empty. Every single one." Teho nodded slowly. 3 months ago, the humans had left. All of them. Every human in council space had simply packed up and disappeared overnight. They left their homes, their businesses, their entire lives behind. The Galactic Council had finally gotten what they wanted, a galaxy without the troublesome, violent humans. Now Teho wished they had never left. "Any signs of where they went?" he asked. "No, sir. They wiped everything clean. All the computers are empty. All the databases are gone. It's like they planned this for years." Yuna's voice shook a little. "The only things they left behind are the basic buildings and some furniture." Teho walked away from the window and sat down in his captain's chair. His ship, the Harmony's Dream, was one of 50 council vessels sent to investigate the empty human worlds. What they found was making everyone very scared. The humans had been too good at leaving, too organized, too prepared. "Sir, incoming message from the council fleet," announced Kyung-soo, the ship's communications officer. His green scales flickered with stress patterns that Teho had learned to recognize over the years. "Put it through." Admiral Minju's face appeared on the main screen. Her normally proud features looked tired and worried. Behind her, Teho could see the busy bridge of her flagship, with officers running back and forth. "Teho, I need you to return to council space immediately," she said without greeting. "We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The Devourers hit 3 more worlds yesterday, Scylla Prime, Bekji Station, and the mining colony on Gaia 7. That makes 17 worlds in the past 3 weeks. Minju's voice was steady, but Teho could see the fear in her eyes. "They're getting faster, and closer to the core worlds." Teho felt his heart sink. The Devourers were something from nightmares, strange alien creatures that appeared without warning and consumed entire planets. They didn't just kill everything. They ate the planets themselves, leaving nothing but empty space and cosmic dust. "How long before they reach the inner systems?" he asked. "At this rate? Maybe 2 months. Maybe less." Minju leaned forward. "Teho, we need to find the humans. Our fleets can't stop these things. You know that. Only the humans ever figured out how to fight them." Teho remembered the last time the Devourers had attacked Council space. That was 5 years ago. The Council's mighty fleets had been helpless against the alien destroyers. Ship after ship had been torn apart or simply vanished. Then the humans arrived with their strange, aggressive tactics and somehow drove the Devourers away. The Council had been grateful then. But gratitude didn't last long. "The Council voted to exile them," Teho said quietly. "We called them too violent, too dangerous. We said they didn't belong in civilized space. I know what we said." Minju's image flickered slightly. "I also know what's happening now. Find them, Teho. Find them and bring them back, before it's too late." The transmission ended, leaving Teho alone with his thoughts and his crew's worried faces. He remembered the last day he had seen Admiral Jinwoo, the human military leader. The human had stood in the council chambers, his dark eyes calm as the council voted to banish his entire species from their space. When the vote was announced, Jinwoo had simply nodded. "You want us gone?" Jinwoo had said in his quiet voice. "Congratulations. You got what you wanted. Good luck with what's coming." At the time, Teho had thought it was just anger talking. Now he wondered if Jinwoo had known something they didn't. "Sir?" Yuna's voice broke his thoughts. "I'm picking up something strange." "What is it?" "There's a signal coming from the planet. Very weak. It's not human, but it's not like anything in our databases either." Teho stood up. "Put it on speakers." A low, humming sound filled the bridge. It was almost like music, but wrong somehow. It made Teho's skin crawl and his tentacles itch. Around the bridge, his crew members were reacting the same way. Even the ship's artificial intelligence seemed disturbed, with warning lights flickering randomly. "That's a devourer signal," whispered So Young, the ship's science officer. Her normally confident voice was barely audible. "I've heard recordings of it before. They make that sound when they're hunting. But there's nothing here to hunt," said Yuna. "The humans are gone. The planet is empty." "Maybe that's the point," Tejo said slowly. A terrible thought was forming in his mind. Maybe the devourers aren't just hunting people. Maybe they're hunting something else. He thought about the human colonies, so neat and organized, so perfectly empty. The humans had taken everything that mattered, their technology, their data, their knowledge. But they had left the basic structures behind. Why would they do that? Why leave anything at all? Yuna, scan the planet again. But this time, don't look for humans. Look for energy signatures. Look for anything that might attract unwanted attention. The young officer's tentacles danced over her controls. After a few minutes, she looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, the planet is giving off massive energy readings. It's like it's calling out to something, broadcasting a signal across space." Tejo felt cold. "What kind of signal?" "I don't know. But it's strong. Strong enough to be detected from very far away." Yuna paused. "Sir, I think this planet is like a beacon. Like it's saying, 'Come here,' to anyone listening." "And the devourers are listening," So Young added quietly. Tejo looked around at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. The humans hadn't just left their colonies. They had turned them into traps, bait to draw the devourers away from something else. But away from what? "Sir, we're getting emergency signals from across the sector," Kyung-Soo announced. "Devourer attacks are happening everywhere, but they're all hitting human worlds. Empty human worlds. How many?" "All of them, sir. Every single abandoned human colony is under attack." Tejo sat down heavily. The humans had planned this. Somehow they had known the devourers were coming. They had evacuated their people and left their worlds as bait to buy time. But time for what? "Set course for council space," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Harmony's dream turned away from the doomed planet below, Tejo couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The humans had been planning their exodus for months, maybe years. They had been too organized, too prepared, and Admiral Jinwoo's final words kept echoing in his mind. "Good luck with what's coming." What if the devourers weren't the real threat? What if they were just the beginning? What if the humans knew something that the council didn't? Behind them, the empty human world began to die. The devourers had arrived, drawn by the mysterious signal that the humans had left behind. But as Tejo watched the planet crumble into dust, he realized that the humans were no longer there to save them. This time, the council was on its own. Councillor Minsu stood at the center of the Great Council chamber, his 4 arms spread wide as he addressed the emergency session. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the curved seats that rose up around him like a metal mountain. Their faces showed fear, anger, and confusion. "Order! We need order!" Minsu shouted over the noise. His voice echoed through the vast chamber, but it took several minutes before the panicked voices died down to worried whispers. In the front row, So Young leaned forward in her seat. Her people, the Zathari, had always been proud of their intelligence. Networks. Now that pride felt like a heavy weight on her shoulders. "Honored Counselor," she said, standing up, "I have information about the human departure that the Council needs to hear." Minsu nodded toward her. "Speak, Delegate So Young." 3 days ago, my people made contact with settlements beyond the galactic rim. Settlements that were thought to be impossible. So Young's voice carried clearly through the chamber. "These settlements are not only real, they are thriving. And they are full of humans." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the chamber. The galactic rim was supposed to be empty space. Nothing could survive out there. The radiation levels alone should have killed any living thing. "That's impossible," called out Delegate Hwan Seok from the upper seats. "No one can live beyond the rim. The energy storms would destroy any ship that tried to get there." "That's what we thought," So Young replied. "But we were wrong. The humans didn't just survive the journey. They made it look easy. And they're not alone out there. She activated a holographic display that showed the edge of the galaxy. Instead of empty space, it was dotted with hundreds of bright points of light. Each of these lights is a human settlement. Some of them are bigger than our core worlds, and they're all protected by technology we've never seen before. Dong-hyun stood up from his seat near the back. He was older than most of the other delegates, and his gray hair showed his many years of service. He had worked with humans for decades before the exile vote. "I have classified files from my time as human liaison," he said. "Files that I think explain what we're seeing." Min-soo looked uncomfortable. "Those files were sealed by council order." "The council order assumed we would never need them again," Dong-hyun replied. "I think recent events prove that assumption was wrong." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew that breaking seal on classified files without permission could end a career. But everyone also knew that their careers wouldn't matter if the Devourers consumed their worlds. "Show us," Min-soo said finally. Dong-hyun activated his personal display. Documents and images filled the air above the delegates' heads. Most of it was in human languages that only a few council members could read. "For the past 30 years, humans have been studying the Devourers," Dong-hyun explained. "Not just their attacks on council space, but attacks throughout the galaxy. Attacks that we never heard about because they happened to species that weren't part of our alliance." He highlighted several documents. The humans found patterns. They discovered that Devourer attacks follow specific rules. And they found something else. The Devourers aren't random destroyers. They're responding to something. "Responding to what?" asked So Young. "Stagnation," Dong-hyun said simply. "The Devourers attack civilizations that have stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped taking risks." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates jumped to their feet, shouting objections. The council had brought peace and stability to the galaxy for over 1,000 years. How could that be bad? "The humans believed," Dong-hyun continued when the noise died down, "that the Devourers are some kind of galactic immune system. They remove civilizations that have become too comfortable, too safe, too afraid to grow." Young delegate Hye-jin stood up slowly. She was one of the few Karathi scientists who had studied human research methods. "If that's true," she said, "then the humans knew the Devourers were coming for us. They knew, and they tried to warn us." "Warn us?" Min-soo's voice was sharp. "When did they warn us?" "Every time they asked for permission to expand their military research," Hye-jin replied. "Every time they requested resources for aggressive defensive projects. Every time we told them they were too violent for civilized space." She activated her own display, showing council records from the past 5 years. Meeting after meeting where human representatives had asked for support for projects that the council had rejected as too dangerous or too militaristic. "They weren't being aggressive," Hye-jin said quietly. "They were trying to prepare us for what they knew was coming." The chamber fell silent again. The weight of understanding was settling on the delegates like a heavy blanket. "There's more," Dong-hyun said. He showed them new images, star charts, and energy readings. The humans didn't just leave randomly. They evacuated to specific coordinates that they had been preparing for years, maybe decades. "How do you know this?" Min-soo asked. "Because some of their early warning systems are still active," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Commander Jinnah walking down the center aisle. She was head of Council Defense Intelligence, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "We found human-designed monitoring stations throughout Council space," she continued. "Hidden stations that we never knew existed. They're still working, still watching for Devourers, but they're not sharing information with us anymore." She reached the center of the chamber and activated her own display. It showed a map of Council space covered in red warning markers. These stations have been tracking Devourer movements for weeks. They know exactly where the attacks will happen next, but they're sending all their information somewhere else, somewhere beyond the rim. "To the humans," So Young said. "To the humans," Jinnah confirmed. "The species we exiled for being too aggressive are now the only ones who understand the threat we're facing." Min-soo looked around the chamber at the worried faces of his fellow delegates. "What are our options?" We have three choices, Jinnah said grimly. We can try to fight the Devourers with our current fleets and lose everything. We can evacuate our people to the inner core worlds and hope the Devourers lose interest. Or, Minsu prompted, or we swallow our pride and ask the humans for help. The suggestion hung in the air like a bad smell. For over 1,000 years, the Council had been the supreme authority in the galaxy. They had never asked anyone for help, especially not from species they had exiled. They'll never agree, said Delegate Wu Bin. We voted them out of civilized space. We called them barbarians. Why would they save us? Because they're humans, Dong Hyun said quietly. And despite everything we said about them, they're better than us. Commander Jinnah nodded. My intelligence suggests that human settlements beyond the Rim are already taking in refugees from Devourer attacks. Species that the Council never even knew existed. They're not just saving themselves, they're saving everyone they can. But will they save us? Minsu asked. Jinnah was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she said finally. But I know one thing. If we don't ask, we'll never find out. And at the rate the Devourers are moving, we don't have much time to decide. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Outside the great windows, the lights of the Council's capital world twinkled peacefully. It was hard to believe that somewhere out there, planets were being consumed by ancient horrors. We need a volunteer, Minsu said finally. Someone to make contact with the humans. Someone they might actually listen to. Several delegates looked around nervously. Going beyond the Rim was dangerous under the best circumstances. Going there, to beg for help from people you had recently exiled, was even worse. I'll go, said a quiet voice. Everyone turned to see Su Bin standing up in the back rows. She was young for a delegate, and her species was known for their diplomatic skills. I worked with humans before the exile vote, she continued. Some of them might remember me. If anyone has a chance of getting through to them, it might be me. Minsu nodded slowly. Very well. Take a fast ship and a small crew. Find the humans and ask them... He paused, struggling with the words. Ask them if they'll help us. As the emergency session ended and delegates filed out of the chamber, Su Bin stood alone, looking out at the peaceful night sky. Somewhere beyond those stars, humanity was building a new civilization. And somewhere else, ancient destroyers were coming to end the old one. She just hoped she could reach the humans before it was too late. Su Bin's small ship, the Peaceful Journey, shuddered as it crossed into the radiation storms at the galaxy's edge. Her pilot, a nervous Korathi named Gitai, gripped his controls with white knuckles. Are you sure about these coordinates? He asked for the 10th time in an hour. The energy readings are off the charts. We should be dead by now. Su Bin checked her instruments again. The human coordinates that Dong Hyun had given her seemed impossible. No ship should be able to survive this far beyond the Rim, but somehow the Peaceful Journey was still intact. There, called out Young Ho, their science officer. Energy field ahead. It's artificial. Through the swirling radiation clouds, they could see a shimmering barrier of light. As they approached, the barrier seemed to recognize their ship and opened like a doorway. By the ancestors, whispered Gitai. What is that? Beyond the barrier, space was calm and clear, and filled with more ships than Su Bin had ever seen in one place. Human ships, but also vessels from species she didn't recognize. Some of the designs looked ancient, like they had been flying for thousands of years. Incoming transmission, Young Ho announced. A human face appeared on their screen. The man looked young, maybe 30 years old, with the dark hair and eyes common to humans from the old Earth colonies. Council vessel, Peaceful Journey. This is Jaemin of New Terra Station. We've been expecting you. Su Bin blinked in surprise. Expecting us? Yes. Please follow the navigation beacon to Docking Bay 7. Administrator Jaemin will meet you there. The transmission ended, leaving Su Bin's crew staring at each other in confusion. How did they know we were coming? Gitai asked. I don't know, Su Bin replied, but we're about to find out. The navigation beacon led them through a fleet of ships toward a massive space station. It was easily 10 times larger than anything the Council had ever built. As they got closer, Su Bin could see that it wasn't just one station, but dozens. of smaller structures connected together. "Those are human colony ships," Young-ho said, studying his readings. "But they've been modified, combined into something new." "How many people live here?" Gite wondered. "Scanning shows approximately 2 million inhabitants," Young-ho replied. "And that's just this station. I'm reading dozens of similar structures throughout this system." Subin felt a chill. When the humans had left council space, their total population had been maybe 50 million. But if every station here held 2 million people, how many humans are out here? She asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, they were docking with the station. The docking bay was huge, filled with ships from across the galaxy. Subin recognized some council designs, but also vessels she had never seen before. As they stepped off their ship, Subin was struck by the noise and activity. The docking bay buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Humans worked alongside aliens she didn't recognize, loading and unloading cargo with efficient teamwork. "Delegate Subin." She turned to see a human approaching. He was tall and lean, with the confident walk of someone used to command. His clothes were simple but well-made, and he wore a small device on his ear that was probably a translator. "I'm Jae-min," he said with a slight bow. "Welcome to New Terra Station. I apologize for the chaos. We're processing another group of refugees from the inner systems." "Refugees?" Subin asked. "From the Devourer attacks. We've been evacuating populations from threatened worlds for the past month." Jaemin gestured for them to follow him. "I understand you're here on official council business." Subin nodded. "We need to speak with human leadership. The situation in council space is desperate," Jaemin finished. "Yes, we know. Our monitoring stations have been tracking the attacks. Come, there are people you need to meet." He led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The station was clearly designed by humans. Everything was functional rather than beautiful. But it was also obviously built to last, with thick walls and redundant systems everywhere. "How long have you been building this?" Subin asked. "We started planning the evacuation 15 years ago," Jaemin replied. "We began actual construction about 8 years ago. We knew this day would come. You knew the council would exile you. We knew the council would refuse to listen to warnings about the Devourers. And we knew that when the attack started, you would need our help." Jaemin's voice was calm, but Subin could hear the sadness in it. "We hoped we were wrong." They entered a large meeting room where several people were waiting. Subin recognized some of them as former Human Council liaisons. Others were clearly not human at all. "Delegate Subin," said a familiar voice. "It's good to see you again." Subin turned to see Admiral Jin Woo standing by the window. He looked older than she remembered, with new lines around his eyes. But his voice was the same calm tone she had heard in the council chambers 3 months ago. "Admiral," she said, carefully. "I wasn't sure you would agree to see me." "You were one of the few council members who voted against our exile," Jinwoo replied. "Of course I would see you. Please sit." Subin took a seat at the large table with her crew flanking her. Across from them sat Jinwoo and several other humans. At the head of the table was someone who definitely wasn't human. "This is Kyung-ho," Jinwoo said, noticing her stare. "He represents our allies, the architects." Kyung-ho was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift color in the light. His eyes were large and dark, and when he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome, Council Delegate," he said. "We have been watching your people's struggle with great interest." "The architects have dealt with Devourers before," Jinwoo explained. "They've been teaching us how to fight them." "Fight them?" Subin leaned forward. "You mean it's possible?" "It's possible," said a new voice. Subin turned to see Nari, a human admiral she had met years ago. "But it requires tactics that the council would consider aggressive." "We're past caring about council sensibilities," Subin said. "Our worlds are dying. We need help." Jinwoo exchanged glances with the other humans. "Help comes with conditions." "What conditions?" "First, recognition of human territorial claims beyond the rim. We're not coming back to council space. This is our home now." Subin nodded. "Agreed." "Second, complete autonomy in military operations. If we help you fight the Devourers, we do it our way. No council oversight." "Agreed." Third, reparations for the seizure of human assets during the exile. Subin hesitated. The council had taken control of all human property when they voted for exile. It was worth trillions of credits. I'll have to discuss that with the full council. And fourth, Jinwoo continued, a formal apology from the council for the exile decision. An apology? Your people called us barbarians. You said we were too violent for civilized space. You voted us out of our homes because you were afraid of us. Jinwoo's voice remained calm, but Subin could hear the pain underneath. We want that acknowledged. Subin looked around the table at the faces watching her. These people had built an entire civilization in exile. They had found allies and learned new technologies. They had prepared for threats that the council had refused to acknowledge, and now the council needed them. I can't speak for the full council, she said finally. But personally, I think you deserve all of that and more. We were wrong. We were afraid. And we made decisions based on fear instead of wisdom. Kyung-ho leaned forward. Fear is not always wrong, delegate, but it must be balanced with courage. Your people have been peaceful for so long that you forgot how to be brave. The devourers respond to stagnation, Nari added. Civilizations that stop growing, stop taking risks, stop changing. The council had become exactly the kind of target they hunt. But you can teach us how to fight them? We can teach you how to survive them, Jinwoo corrected. Fighting implies you can win. With devourers, survival is victory. He activated a holographic display showing star charts. The attacks on council space will continue for approximately 6 more months. By then, they will have consumed roughly 60% of your territory. Subin felt her heart stop. 60%? The remaining worlds can be defended, but only if we start immediately, and only if your people are willing to do things they've never done before. What kind of things? Evacuation on a massive scale, abandoning worlds to save populations, using aggressive tactics that will seem brutal to council sensibilities. Jinwoo met her eyes. Are you willing to become everything the council said we were too violent to be? Subin thought about the empty human colonies, the perfect organization of their departure, the way they had prepared for this day years in advance. If it means survival, she said. Yes. Jinwoo nodded slowly. Then we'll help you, but understand. When this is over, the galaxy will be a very different place. The council's time as the dominant power is ending. What comes next will be built by those willing to take risks and make hard choices. Will there be a place for council species in that future? There will be a place for everyone willing to adapt, Kyung-ho said. But the old ways are finished. The devourers have seen to that. Subin looked out the window at the fleet of ships surrounding the station. Somewhere beyond them, council worlds were dying. But here, in this impossible place beyond the rim, there was hope. When do we start? She asked. Young-soo adjusted his equipment one more time before beginning his explanation. The council delegation sat around the conference table, their faces showing a mixture of fear and confusion. After 3 days on New Terra Station, they were starting to understand just how little they knew about the galaxy. The devourers aren't what you think they are, Young-soo began. He was a small man with gentle eyes, but Subin had learned that he was one of humanity's leading experts on xenobiology. They're not monsters or invaders. They're more like gardeners. Gardeners? Subin asked. Gardeners that destroy planets? Gardeners that remove dead growth so new life can flourish, Young-soo corrected. He activated a holographic display showing the spiral arms of their galaxy. Every galaxy has them. They've been doing this for millions of years. The hologram zoomed in to show different regions of space. Some areas pulsed with healthy blue light, while others glowed with sickly red energy. The blue areas represent healthy, growing civilizations, Young-soo explained. They're expanding, exploring, taking risks, learning new things. The red areas represent stagnant civilizations, ones that have stopped growing. And the devourers attack the red areas, Gite said quietly. They clean out the red areas, Young-soo confirmed. They remove civilizations that have become too comfortable, too afraid to change. It's not personal, it's not evil, it's just maintenance. Nari stepped forward. She wore the uniform of the Human Defense Fleet, and her expression was grim. "We figured this out about 10 years ago. That's when we realized the Council was in danger." "Danger?" Young-Ho asked. "But the Council brought peace to the galaxy. We ended wars, created prosperity, established trade networks that benefited everyone. You also stopped expanding," Nari replied. "When was the last time the Council established a new colony? When was the last time you developed new technology? When was the last time you took a real risk?" The Council delegates looked at each other uncomfortably. Subin realized she couldn't remember any major Council innovations in her lifetime. For over 1,000 years, they had been maintaining the status quo. "We brought stability," she said, weakly. "You brought stagnation," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Admiral Jinwoo entering the room, followed by Kyung-Ho, the architect representative. The alien's shifting skin seemed more agitated than usual. "The Council became exactly what the Devourers are designed to remove," Jinwoo continued. "A civilization so afraid of change that it had stopped living." "That's not fair," Young-Ho protested. "We prevented wars. We saved lives." "You prevented growth," Kyung-Ho said, his voice echoing strangely in the room. "You created a galaxy-wide stagnation that triggered the Devourer response." The architect moved to the holographic display and gestured with one long finger. The AC image changed to show energy patterns flowing through space. "The Devourers detect this energy," he explained. "It builds up in civilizations that have stopped evolving. Like poison in a body, it eventually becomes toxic to the entire galaxy." "So, you're saying it's our fault?" Subin asked. "It's nobody's fault," Young-Soo said gently. "It's just what happens when civilizations become too successful for their own good. The Council brought peace and prosperity. But peace and prosperity without growth become death." Jinwoo activated another display, this one showing human research. Data. "We tried to warn the Council about this. Every time we proposed new exploration missions, you voted them down as too risky. Every time we suggested military research, you called it too aggressive. We thought you were trying to start wars," Giti said. "We were trying to keep the galaxy alive," Nari replied. "We could see the energy patterns building up. We knew what was coming." "So you prepared to abandon us," Young-Ho said bitterly. "We prepared to save as many people as possible when the inevitable happened," Jinwoo corrected. "Including Council. Species, if you would let us." Subin looked around the room at the humans and their alien ally. "You've been planning this for years." "Decades," Kyung-Ho confirmed. "The architects have seen this pattern before, in other galaxies. When we found humans, we recognized their potential to break the cycle." "What made humans different?" Subin asked. Young-Soo smiled sadly. "We were never allowed to get comfortable. Earth history is full of wars, disasters, and challenges that forced us to keep adapting. When we reached the stars, we brought that adaptability with us." "The Council saw human aggressiveness as a flaw," Nari added. "We saw it as survival instinct," Jinwoo gestured to the window where the massive human fleet could be seen. "When we realized the Council wouldn't listen to our warnings, we started preparing for evacuation, not just of humans, but of anyone willing to come with us." "The architects helped us find this region of space," Kyung-Ho explained. "Beyond the galactic rim where devourer energy cannot build up, here civilizations can grow safely." "But what about the people still in Council space?" Subin asked. "Can they be saved?" "Some of them," Jinwoo said carefully. "But not all, and not in the way the Council would prefer." He activated a new display showing Council territory. Large sections were marked in red. "These areas cannot be defended. The devourer energy is too concentrated. We can evacuate populations, but the worlds themselves are lost." 60% of Council space, Subin whispered, remembering his earlier statement. "The remaining 40% can be protected, but only with major changes. New technologies, new tactics, new ways of thinking." Jinwoo met her eyes. "Are the Council species ready for that kind of change? Do we have a choice?" "There's always a choice," Kyung-Ho said. "You can choose to adapt and survive, or you can choose to maintain your old ways and die with dignity. Some Council species might prefer the second option," Nari pointed out. Change is harder than death for some civilizations. Subin thought about the proud council chambers, the ancient traditions, the 1,000 years of careful order. Then, she thought about the empty human colonies and the approaching devourers. What would survival look like? She asked. Young-Su activated another display, this one showing the human colonies beyond the rim. Mixed settlements, shared technology, constant exploration and growth. No more static borders or unchanging territories. It would mean the end of the council as you know it, Jinwoo added. No more central authority deciding what's safe and what's dangerous. No more preventing species from taking risks. Chaos, Gitae muttered. Life, Kyung-ho corrected. Messy, unpredictable, dangerous life. The kind that keeps evolving instead of dying. Subin looked at her crew members. Young-ho seemed terrified by the implications. Gitae looked confused and overwhelmed, but there was something else in their eyes, a spark of curiosity that she hadn't seen in years. If we agree to this, she said slowly, if the council accepts your help and your conditions, what happens next? We begin the largest evacuation in galactic history, Nari replied. We save everyone we can and move them to safe territory. Then we start building something new. Something that can grow and change and adapt, Young-Su added. Something that will never trigger the devourer response again. And if we refuse? Jin-Woo was quiet for a long moment. Then we save who we can without council approval, and we let the devourers finish their work. In a year or two, the red zones will be clear, and the cycle will reset. With humans as the dominant species, Young-Ho said accusingly. With adaptable species as the survivors, Kyung-Ho corrected. Human, council, or otherwise. The devourers don't care about species. They only care about growth versus stagnation. Subin stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see ships arriving constantly, bringing refugees from across the galaxy. Not just council species, but aliens she had never seen before. All of them working together, adapting to their new reality. I need to return to council space, she said finally. I need to present this to the full council. Time is running short, Jinwoo warned. Every day we delay, more worlds are lost. I understand. But this decision is too big for me to make alone. Nari nodded. We'll give you an escort ship and safe passage through the rim. But Subin... Yes? When you present this to the council, remember that you're not asking them to choose between pride and survival. You're asking them to choose between death and transformation. Subin turned back to face the room. And if they choose death? Then we honor their choice, Jinwoo said sadly. And we remember them well. As Subin prepared to leave New Terra Station, she carried with her the weight of an impossible decision. Save the council by destroying everything it stood for, or preserve their dignity by allowing their extinction. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. In-ho stared at the numbers on his screen for the 5th time, hoping they would somehow change. They didn't. As the council's chief military analyst, he had spent his entire career calculating odds and predicting outcomes. He had never seen numbers this bad. The mathematics are clear, he announced to the Emergency War Council. His voice echoed in the smaller chamber they were using since the main council hall had been evacuated. At current rates, the devourers will consume all remaining council territory within 6 months. Around the table, the faces of the surviving council leadership showed various degrees of despair and denial. Half of their worlds were already gone, turned into cosmic dust by the alien destroyers. There has to be something we can do, insisted Councillor Boram. Her species had ruled the outer sectors for centuries, and she couldn't accept that their mighty fleets were helpless. We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. Traditional warfare doesn't work against devourers, In-ho replied patiently. He had explained this dozens of times, but some council members still refused to understand. Our fleets actually make the problem worse. Large concentrations of ships create exactly the kind of stagnant energy patterns that attract them. Then what do you suggest? asked Commander Yunji, who had taken over defense coordination after 3 senior admirals had been lost with their fleets. Inho activated his personal display, showing ship movement patterns across Council space. The humans are offering evacuation support. They have transport ships standing by at the edge of our territory. Evacuation to where? Boram demanded. We're not going to become refugees in human space. The alternative is extinction, Inho said bluntly. Delegate Subin's report was very clear. The humans can save populations, but not worlds. We can preserve our people and our cultures, but not our territories. The door to the chamber opened, and Subin herself entered, looking exhausted from her journey back from the Galactic Rim. Behind her came Tae-ho, who had just returned from another scouting mission to the destroyed human worlds. Any new developments? Subin asked as she took her seat. The Devourers hit the Scylla system this morning, Yunji reported. 7 billion people. We evacuated maybe 500,000 before the attacks began. Subin closed her eyes in pain. The numbers were getting worse every day. What about the human offer? Still under debate, Boram said coldly. Some of us aren't ready to abandon everything our ancestors built. Your ancestors built civilizations that lasted thousands of years, Subin replied. They would want their descendants to survive, even if it meant change. Tai-Ho activated his own display, showing images from the human settlement he had just visited. I've seen what the humans are offering. It's not charity, it's partnership. Partnership where they hold all the power, Boram countered. Partnership where they provide the knowledge we need to survive, Subin corrected. They've learned how to live beyond the Galactic Rim. They've found allies we never knew existed. They've developed technologies that actually work against Devourers. Inho pulled up new data streams. I've been analyzing the human evacuation patterns. They're not random. They're targeting specific population centers and specific genetic lines. What do you mean? Yunji asked. They're not just saving people. They're preserving genetic diversity, cultural knowledge, technological expertise. They're thinking long-term about rebuilding entire civilizations. He showed them charts of human rescue operations. Look at this. They evacuated the entire Korathi Scientific Academy from the Goguryeo system. They saved the Scylla genetic archives just hours before the planet was destroyed. They're not just grabbing refugees. They're conducting surgical preservation of our most important assets. Subin nodded. I saw their facilities beyond the rim. They have entire sections dedicated to preserving council cultures. Libraries, museums, genetic banks. They're planning for a future where our species can rebuild. But not here, Boram said stubbornly. Not in our ancestral home systems. Our ancestral home systems are being turned into cosmic dust, Tae-Ho pointed out. The choice isn't between staying and leaving. The choice is between leaving voluntarily and dying involuntarily. Commander Yunji leaned forward. What exactly are the humans proposing? Subin activated the formal proposal that Admiral Jin Woo had given her. Complete evacuation of threatened populations to human-controlled space beyond the rim. Temporary. Settlement in refugee facilities while permanent colonies are established. Full preservation of cultural identity and limited self-governance within the human confederation. Limited self-governance, Boram repeated bitterly. We go from being rulers of our own worlds to being junior partners in a human empire. We go from being corpses to being alive, Inho said bluntly. I've run every scenario, tried every variable. There is no mathematical possibility of successful resistance with our current capabilities. Then we get new capabilities, Boram insisted. We learn to fight like humans do. That would take years, Yunji said. Years we don't have. Subin pulled up images from New Terra Station. The humans are already doing what you're suggesting. They're teaching other species their techniques. But it requires fundamental changes in how we think about warfare, exploration, and risk. What kind of changes? Tae-Ho asked. Aggressive tactics, constant movement, willingness to abandon positions and populations when necessary. Everything the Council has spent 1,000 years avoiding. Inho nodded grimly. The humans fight Devourers by becoming more human, more unpredictable, more willing to take risks, more adaptable. It works for them because that's their nature. Could it work for us? Yunji wondered. Some of us, maybe, Subin replied. But not all, and not quickly enough to save our current territories. Boram stood up abruptly. I won't accept this. There has to be another way. What other way? Inho challenged. Give me one scenario where the council survives in its current form. Boram was quiet for a long moment. We could retreat to the core worlds, concentrate our defenses, make a stand. The core worlds have the highest concentration of stagnant energy, Subin said gently. They're exactly what the Devourers are designed to target. We would be painting a bull's eye on our most important systems. Then what do you suggest? Boram asked desperately. Subin looked around the table at the faces of the people who had once ruled a galaxy. Now they were reduced to arguing about the terms of their own evacuation. I suggest we accept reality, she said finally. The council as we knew it is finished. The question now is whether council species will survive to build something new. Tejo activated a new display showing human fleet movements. The humans have positioned evacuation ships at the edge of every threatened system. They're ready to begin large-scale population transfers immediately. But we would have to live under human authority, Boram said. Temporarily, Subin emphasized. The humans have promised that once we're established beyond the rim, we can begin founding our own colonies. But those colonies would be part of a larger confederation, not independent council territory. Inho pulled up his final analysis. I've calculated the resources required for independent resistance. We would need approximately 50 times our current military capacity, plus technologies that don't exist yet, plus another 10 years of preparation time. And for evacuation, 2 months for complete population transfer, 6 months for cultural preservation, 1 year for initial resettlement. Inho met each of their eyes in turn. It's not optimal, but it's possible. Commander Yunji was quiet for a long time. What do our people want? I've been monitoring communications from the threatened systems, Tejo said. Most civilian populations are begging for evacuation. They've seen what happened to the consumed worlds. They know they can't fight Devourers. And our military? Split. The older officers want to make a stand. The younger ones are more willing to adapt to human tactics. Subin stood up and walked to the chamber's one remaining window. Outside, she could see evacuation ships loading refugees from the latest Devourer attacks. Human ships working efficiently to save council lives. The humans didn't have to help us, she said quietly. We exiled them. We called them barbarians. We voted them out of civilized space. But when we needed them, they came back. They came back because they need us, Boram protested. They came back because it's the right thing to do, Subin corrected, and because they understand something we forgot, that survival is more important than pride. She turned back to face the council. I'm recommending that we accept the human offer. Full evacuation, full cooperation, full integration into their confederation. And if the full council disagrees, Boram asked, then we split the vote. Those who want to evacuate can go. Those who want to make a final stand can stay. Subin's voice was heavy with sadness. But we shouldn't force anyone to die for principles they don't share. Inho nodded slowly. That might be the best we can do. Give our people a choice. Some choice, Boram muttered. Live as refugees or die as heroes. Live as survivors or die as fools, Tejo corrected. There's nothing heroic about extinction. As the emergency council prepared to make their final recommendation, Subin looked out at the human evacuation ships once more. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, humanity was building a new kind of civilization. A civilization where survival mattered, me. 6 months later, Chanwu stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching as another group of council refugees arrived at their new home. The massive transport ships docked with practiced efficiency, their human crews working, alongside council volunteers to process the new arrivals. It still amazed him how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a minor council bureaucrat processing trade agreements. Now he was a refugee coordinator, helping his own people adapt to life beyond the galactic rim. How many this time? Asked Heiwan, joining him at the window. She was young, barely 20 in human years, but she had adapted to their new life faster than most. Her family had been among the first to accept evacuation when the Devourers reached their home system. 8,000 from the Bekje colonies, Chan Wu replied. "The last group before the final devourer sweep of that sector." "Any resistance?" "Some. A few thousand chose to stay and fight." Chan Wu's voice was heavy with sadness. "They transmitted their final messages yesterday. Very brave, very pointless." Heywan nodded quietly. They had both seen the messages from council holdouts who refused evacuation. Heroic speeches about dying with dignity rather than living as refugees. It was hard to argue with their principles, but it was also hard to watch good people choose extinction over adaptation. "The integration reports are ready," she said, handing him a data pad. Chan Wu scrolled through the statistics. 2 million council refugees now lived in human space beyond the rim. The numbers showed remarkable adaptation rates for such a massive population transfer. Karathi integration at 85%, he read aloud. Zathari at 78%, Thraxian at 92%. The Thraxians were always more flexible, Heywan observed. Their culture values survival over tradition, and the Velkin, 63%. Still struggling with the cultural changes. Chan Wu wasn't surprised. The Velkin had been the most conservative council species, clinging to ancient traditions and formal hierarchies. Adapting to human informality and constant change was difficult for them. "Any major problems?" "The usual complaints about human military training," Heywan said. "Some council species still think the combat exercises are too aggressive." Chan Wu smiled slightly. "Wait until they see actual devourer combat. They'll understand why humans train the way they do." Through the window, he could see mixed crews working on the docking platforms. Humans and council species side by side. Their difference is obvious, but their cooperation complete. It wasn't the future anyone had planned, but it was working. "Coordinator Chan Wu?" A new voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Myung-jin approaching. The former council chancellor looked older than his years, his proud bearing diminished by the weight of leading his people through their greatest crisis. But he was adapting, slowly learning to work within the human confederation structure. "Chancellor," Chan Wu said, offering a slight bow. "Old habits died hard." "Just Myung-jin now," the former leader corrected. "I wanted to discuss the new colony proposals." They walked to a nearby conference room where holographic displays showed potential settlement sites throughout the human confederation territory. Dozens of worlds suitable for council species colonization, all beyond the range of devourer detection. "The humans have approved 12 new colony sites," Myung-jin said. "Each one designed for specific council species requirements." "That's generous of them." "It's practical," Myung-jin corrected. "Happy refugees make better Confederation citizens. The humans understand that forced integration doesn't work long-term." Chan Wu studied the colony proposals. Each one represented a chance for council species to rebuild their civilizations, not as they had been before, but as something new, something that could survive in the changed galaxy. "Any word from the resistance movements?" he asked. Myung-jin's expression darkened. "The last holdout colonies fell 3 days ago. The devourer sweep of council space is complete." "How complete?" 97%. A few isolated outposts in the outer systems might have survived, but we've lost contact with them. Chan Wu felt a familiar ache in his chest. An entire civilization, thousands of years of history, reduced to the refugee populations scattered across human space. It was survival, but it came at a terrible cost. "The memorial service is scheduled for tomorrow," Myung-jin continued. "Admiral Jinwoo will be giving the main address." "Will many people attend?" "Most of the refugee population, even the holdouts who initially refused evacuation." Myung-jin managed a sad smile. "It's remarkable how quickly perspective changes when you're the only survivors of your species." The door opened and Sang-ho entered, carrying reports from the integration committees. He was one of the human administrators who had been assigned to refugee services, and his patient work with council species had earned him respect throughout the stations. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, "but we have new developments that affect the colony planning." "What kind of developments?" Chan Wu asked. Sang-ho activated a new display showing the galaxy's spiral arms. "Long-range sensors are detecting distress signals from regions beyond our previous exploration range. Other civilizations facing devourer attacks." "How many?" Myung-jin. asked. At least 6 major galactic clusters, possibly more. Sang-Ho highlighted the signal sources. Some of them are requesting assistance. Chan-Wu stared at the display. The humans are planning to help them. It's being debated. Admiral Jin-Woo believes that if we don't help, the Devourer problem will just spread to other galaxies. Better, to teach survival techniques before entire civilizations are lost. That would mean expanding the Confederation, Myung-Jin observed, significantly. We're talking about potentially millions of new refugee populations, dozens of new species, hundreds of new worlds to settle. Chan-Wu thought about the integration challenges they were already facing with just Council species. Adding millions more refugees would strain their resources and complicate their social dynamics enormously. Can the Confederation handle that kind of expansion? The humans think so, Sang-Ho replied. They're calling it the Great Adaptation, a galaxy-wide effort to teach survival techniques and establish safe zones beyond the range of Devourer detection. And our role in this? Council. Species would be full partners. Your people have administrative experience that the humans lack. Your diplomatic traditions could help with interspecies negotiations. Sang-Ho paused. The humans are offering Council refugees a chance to help shape the future, instead of just surviving in it. Myung-Jin was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, we were the dominant power in the galaxy. Now we're refugees planning to help other refugees. 6 months ago, your people were facing extinction, Sang-Ho pointed out gently. Now you're planning to help save entire civilizations. Which sounds more worthy to you? Through the conference room windows, they could see the bustling activity of the refugee stations. Council children playing with human children in the recreation areas. Mixed crews working on construction projects. Scientists from different species sharing research in the laboratories. What do you think, Chan-Wu? Myung-Jin asked. Chan-Wu looked at Hai-Wan, who had been quietly listening to the conversation. She represented the younger generation of Council, refugees, the ones who would inherit whatever future they built. What do you think? He asked her. I think we have a choice, she said slowly. We can spend the rest of our lives mourning what we lost, or we can use what we learned to help others avoid losing everything. The humans could probably handle the expansion without us, Sang-Ho added. But it would be better with Council. Experience and knowledge. Better for whom? Myung-Jin asked. For everyone. For the refugees who will need diplomatic integration. For the humans who will need administrative structure. For the galaxy as a whole. Sang-Ho met their eyes. The Devourers aren't going away. This is the new reality. We can either adapt to it together, or we can face it alone. Chan-Wu thought about the empty Council worlds, now nothing but cosmic dust. Then he thought about the thriving stations around them, full of life and hope and mixed species cooperation. I vote for together, he said finally. Myung-Jin nodded slowly. So do I. The Council is dead, but maybe something better can grow from its ashes. Something more adaptable, Hai-Wan added. Something that won't trigger the Devourer response. Again. Something human, Sang-Ho said with a slight smile. In the best sense of the word, as they began planning for the Great Adaptation, Chan-Wu realized that they were no longer just Council refugees living in human space. They were becoming something new, a confederation of survivors, united by their willingness to adapt and grow and change. It wasn't the future the Council had planned, but it was a future worth building. Outside their window, rescue ships were already preparing for new missions to distant galaxies. The work of survival would continue, expanded now to encompass threats and opportunities they had never imagined. The Council was gone. But from its ending, something larger and stronger was beginning, something that might actually survive in a galaxy full of ancient gardeners and cosmic cleaning crews, something worth saving.